Good morning, good early afternoon almost. Welcome everyone to Loyola Marymount University. Today's event is called Communities in Conversation, and I appreciate everybody attending today. I'm Karen Rapp, I'm the director and curator of the Laband and the curator of the exhibition Noni Olabisi, When Lightning Strikes. Thank you. First off, I want to make sure that everybody is aware that the show has been extended by one valuable week. It is open through Saturday, April 4th, and please spread the word about the show. LA is so massive, it is difficult to get on people's radars. We are at the furthest west end, practically, of Los Angeles County. So you spreading the word will help. Today is about hailing Noni Olabisi's talents and gifts as an artist, as seen from the perspective of multiple communities and vantage points. Excuse me. I am so grateful to the presenters who accepted the invitation to speak about Noni: Isabel Rojas-Williams, Carlos Rogel, Richard May, Armando Pulido, Karen Mack, and Dominique Moody. Our presenter, the amazing artist and educator, Yreina Cervántez, will not be able to join us today, and I will be at the end of today's session walking us through the presentation that she shared. I'm also thrilled to welcome the puppet theater One Grain of Sand, as they will regale us with a performance expressing their love for Noni. Today's program is being recorded and will be made accessible on YouTube in the near future. The intent of today's program is to contribute to the archive about Noni, and I am speaking here on the record, and I want to use this opportunity to express my gratitude to the following individuals who guided this project with their keen insight and enthusiasm: Pat Gomez, Barbara Carrasco, June Edmonds, Paul von Blum, Corey Martin, Raul Gonzalez, Lisa Diane Wedgeworth, Miriam Ferguson, Michael Massenberg, George Evans, Renee Fisher-Mims, Ami Motavali, Alex Poley, Josh Garrett Davis, Lindy Lentinen, Daisha Ray Deshawn. And especially a huge thank you to Beth Peterson from LA Commons. Today, Corey Martin is joining us from Spark. And I get to then say to Corey and the staff at Spark a huge thank you. The dedicated resources that were provided by Pilar Castillo, the Director of Exhibitions and Archives, and the wonderful Ashley Landeverde, who is a library science graduate student from Simmons University, in processing more than 200 archival items related to Noni's 2 Spark murals, were invaluable. In addition, Spark staff, Eric Cortez, who just started here at LMU this week in our photo department, and Hings Lim, used their technical prowess to realize the magnificent rendering of the mural to protect and serve in our gallery. It is 50% of the true size of the mural, and it was the mural that Noni, on the record, considered her masterpiece, and Spark made this possible. It was a vision that I'd had and had spoken to Noni about, that I really wanted to bring her masterpieces from the street into the gallery to appreciate them fully for the artistic and the amazing messages that her works contain. At the Laband manager, Molly Corey, created the comprehensive finding aid for To Protect and Serve, and she has been an unwavering partner in realizing innumerable aspects of this project. I thank Eric Escalante here today for welcoming us in this space and expertly managing all of our needs so that this recording will be available forever, I hope, on YouTube. Most of all, I thank Arande and Jabari Spears, Noni's son and grandson. It is the privilege truly of my career to organize this exhibition with the artist's estate and to express what the artist Noni Olabisi means to me. I want to return to the theme of recordings and archives and say that when Noni passed away, it was a huge loss for her family, the art world, Los Angeles, South Los Angeles. This project and this gathering today of voices is about giving agency to Noni's life. While Noni's imagery blows up on a Google search, there is a dearth of published writing on Noni Olabisi. I am proud to share that the Laband is working on Noni's publication, which will be released in the fall. The catalog is in the works. It is designed by Black Voice Designs' Toshika Arsenault-Sutton, and we'll have an essay by our guest today, Richard May. Our format today is for each speaker to make their presentation where I am standing, and then we're going to gather for conversation in the seats to my right. We will follow the order of the printed program. Isabel will now be the first to make a presentation, and I will try to walk through the presentation that Yreina had sent for today at the end. If you need a program, we can bring one to you. We'll be taking questions and answers, answer as a group after all the individuals of session one have spoken. And please, when you're asking your questions, state who you are. Again, this is all being recorded and will be part of the archive. I want to offer a land acknowledgement now as part of Loyola Marymount University's recognition of our history, location, and relationship to the indigenous communities in Los Angeles. We acknowledge the Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of Tovangar, the Los Angeles Basin and Southern Channel Islands, and the presence of LMU on this traditional, ancestral, and unceded land. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live, study, create, and be in this place. Thank you again for joining us today, and I welcome Isabel Rojas-Williams to join me here.
Perfect, thank you. My name is Isabel Rojas-Williams. I'm an art historian whose research focuses on the murals of Los Angeles. Thank you to Karen Rapp and Laband Gallery for this important tribute to one of our icons. And thank you all for being here today. Social justice, human rights, and equality, these were the forces in Noni Olabisi's murals that made her my soul sisters long before I met her. My beloved friend painted from her heart. As Noni would say, she wanted the walls to scream, and that's exactly what her murals did. It is impossible to fully capture the breadth of her work in just a few minutes, but I want to highlight a few of her powerful pieces. Her 1992 mural, Freedom Won't Wait, created in response to the Los Angeles uprising following the Rodney King's verdict, is a visual demand for racial justice. It connects the history of slavery and lynching to modern police brutality, asserting that the fight for freedom is urgent, necessary, and ongoing. Her 1996 mural, To Protect and Serve, is a bold and controversial critique of police brutality. It also honors the history of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense's community and social programs depicting figures like Bobby Seale and Angela Davis and highlighting their work providing food, clothing, and medical care to Black communities in need. I'm going to go back to her Freedom on Weight. When I met Noni and I interviewed and in our conversations, she told me about that very day in 1992 when she was at the barber shop cutting somebody's hair. And the verdicts happened. And it was chaotic in the barber shop. People were afraid. People were scared of what was going to come on to the Black community. And at this point, she, who has never painted a mural before, had applied to make a mural for Spark without somebody inspired her to do that. She didn't know what she was going to do. She didn't have any subject that she wanted to talk about. She just did it because somebody told her to do it. To her surprise, her proposal was accepted. And Noni had no idea. They asked her for a sketch. She had no idea what she was going to do. So she didn't do it fast. And then they told her, Noni, you need to submit a sketch. You're late. We already gave you a check. You need to do this. But Noni didn't know what to do. So she finally sent some portraits. So they told her, you know, we don't want any portraits. We want you to tell a story. And there was Noni. She told me, I was terrified. The more pressure, the less I know what I was going to do. So that very day of the verdicts, when the people were afraid and so was I, she said, but I was listening to the people around me, you know, the people who were there and the people who were coming into the shop. And one of my friends told me, you know what this means, Noni? This means open season for the Black community. I am terrified, the people were telling her. And so she began listening to what it was happening around her. And then one of her friends came and told her, you know, Noni, this is not Freedom Will Wait, because that's the name she was wanting to give her mural. This means freedom won't wait. And that's when she adopted the name. She told me she wanted that wall to scream. And it was very emotional for her. It took many years for her to go back and visit the wall. She told me she felt like she was possessed. She had no idea what was happening to her, but she didn't want to go back to it. So needless to say that standing in front of the mural, we understand perfectly what she did and why did she do it, and how strong that one of the most iconic murals in our city and potentially in this country about African American Black history. And regarding to protect and serve, the LAPD was extremely worried about her using to protect and serve, since that's their motto. So they were worried that the community will do something. They were worried about what she was going to paint there. And she sent the sketch to the city for approval, as it usually is done. And she faced a lot of censorship. They didn't want to economically support the project, and they took the money away. So Spark, along with other funders, private funders, and the community at large, financially supported that mural. It was the dearest mural to her. As she told me, that was my favorite mural. It represented the people that it made me feel protected. She said, as a young woman, I was not a strong woman. I didn't have any courage to defend myself, but I felt protected. by the Black Panthers, and she made sure that I knew how to say it. She told me it's Black Panthers Party for Self-Defense. At that point, I was asked to write for the catalog for the Black Panthers exhibition that traveled from Los Angeles to Oakland, Chicago, and New York. And I wrote this, and then I sat down with her and said, hey, can you look at this? And she read it, and she said, yes, that's great, but never forget that it's Black Panthers Party for Self-Defense. So I just wanted to say that because that's what she wanted me to always remember. When I first encountered Noni's murals in South Los Angeles in the 1990s, I was in total rapture. I stood there with tears rolling down my face, unable to move, asking myself, how could an artist make a wall scream about the very issues I had fought for? I had been politically forced out of Chile, my country of birth, in 1973. In that moment, I knew I had to meet her. I'm gonna take a little parenthesis here because regarding to these murals that are so important to me personally, to all of you, to our city and to our history, two women that I highly admire became together through a mural. Noni Olabisi restored my friend Judith Hernandez, who is present here, one of our icons of the Chicano mural and art movement. Noni, along with Ama Lopez, restored her 1976 Barrio de, what's the last part? Barrio de, El Barrio de Sotero. So Judith, could you tell us a little bit about that?
It's actually a story of a mural that was done and had the same reaction twice over a span of 25 or 30 years. Interestingly enough, the mural was a Spark produced event, and I was sent to talk to a community group that wanted their recreation center revived by having, the gang who put all of the graffiti on it take it off. And there was quite a debate about, what the image that would replace a space on the wall was what they wanted in order to not graffiti, the neighborhood or the building again. After, a lot of tension between the residents of the neighborhood and the city, we did decide on a design that was very Chicano-oriented. And the day of the dedication, after a month of working with these kids who were not angels, but for a month they had been good. And they worked with me, and we did this wonderful mural. And the police, the local police, who didn't like them, decided on the day before the dedication they were going to have a police raid on us as we were cleaning up one afternoon. The most frightening thing, I was a young woman at one time, and I remember I had been in other protest marches. I was never more frightened than the one that approached us on that afternoon. They surrounded Stoner Park, and something like 8 unmarked police cars disgorged all these men, these policemen, some in plain clothes with their guns drawn. All we had were paint and brushes. There were children in the area. There were parents of the children in the area. We couldn't believe it was happening. It took maybe 3 minutes to happen, but it seemed like days when they were, clubbing kids, tying their hands up. I was almost arrested. Fortunately, I was saved by one of the girls who was a real leader in the gang, who pulled me aside and said, you stay out of this. We don't want you to get in trouble. There was a trial, and it was thrown out of court by a female judge who was very smart because she knew what they were doing. Okay, that's the first half of this. I want to make this fast for you. 25 years later, or maybe 20 years later, I'm sitting in Chicago at Rush University. I was working for them at the time. I left Los Angeles in 1984 to move to Chicago. And I had a phone call from the supervisor and the chief of police from this area. And I thought, what in the hell do they want to talk to me about? And it was about the renovation of the mural. I knew about that, and I gave my permission. But I didn't realize that they were still angry about what happened. And they wanted a word removed from the mural. And I was just, I couldn't believe that after 20 years they were still pissed off about what had happened. And the fact that we refused to take away on the license car of the lowrider that's in the mural the word Sotel. They wanted it removed, and I said, no way. I will use every, legal avenue I can muster if you decide to try and take that off the wall. They backed off, but then they did the same thing again. They came the days before Noni and Alma had finished the mural. They did the most incredible job. I was so pleased when I finally saw it a few years later. And they were treated the same way I was. Another police raid where they arrested people and took them to jail for a while just to punish them. But the mural has survived. It survived at least another 5 or 6 years before the whole rec center was taken down, because they were going to build something bigger and nicer, which no one can argue with. But it was I think for probably Noni, it certainly was for me and Alma and I have talked about this. It was an example of the power of visual art and the power of a word that has such an effect on people who don't want other folks to have agency and freedom and justice and a voice of their own. And I think that's what Noni's work always, I look at her work and it is so brilliant in that respect. It brings back those memories of wanting to reestablish or establish for the first time a real sense of, not freedom as much as it was, the ability to talk about the things we needed to talk about and to the people to whom those were addressed. And I think when you talk truth to power, it's a very dangerous thing to do.
I finally met Noni Olabisi in 2008. Noni joined me in the effort to craft and pass the mural ordinance that ended the 10-year mural moratorium in Los Angeles. We both believe deeply in restoring freedom of expression to muralists. That moratorium was a direct attack on social justice, on our communities, and especially to communities of color. We needed the walls to keep on screaming. That shared purpose forged our friendship, one rooted in unwavering loyalty, deep trust, and lasting resilience. As her friend, and later as executive director of the Mural Conservancy of Los Angeles, I knew Noni's work needed to be widely recognized. I attended her mural openings and exhibitions. I invited her to speak with me about our roles as mural advocates, but also about our shared commitment to social justice and our deep friendship. One especially meaningful moment was exhibiting her 2015 artwork, Travel Island, at the Los Angeles Art Show. Actually, you can see that beautiful piece next door at the Laband Gallery. This piece is a visual narrative honoring the 1791 Haitian slave revolution. The mural, painted on the facade of the William Grant Still Art Center, invites viewers of all backgrounds to confront both past and present racism. Noni Olabisi wrote mural history every time she held a paintbrush. She spoke from the past into the future. Her heart and soul are engraved not only on the walls of our city, but in all of us. Her work bleeds with passion for social justice and stands as a reminder of injustices that must never be forgotten. She was a powerful activist and cultural worker, one of the forces behind the current mural renaissance in Los Angeles, who inspired generations of artists to continue this vital work. We laughed together, we cried together. We shared stages at galleries, museums, colleges, and universities. She made everything feel so effortless with her magical presence. And in our shared struggle for social justice, freedom of expression, and human rights, we became sisters forever. Noni might no longer be with us physically, but her spirit lives on. Her legacy, her murals, her voice, her vision will continue to inspire future generations. I feel so fortunate that our journeys converge so meaningfully. We made such a powerful team. I always will miss my beautiful friend. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name's Carlos Rogel, and I was Noni's mural conservator for to protect and serve. So, my former position at the Social and Public Art Resource Center involved collaborating with different artists, restoring their works. I had worked to develop a methodology of restoring murals and preserving works that was inclusive of original artists and community collaborations. And as part of the moratorium, one of the challenges that the mural community faced was the economic impact that it had on individuals being able to work in relationship, with private properties. And a 10-year, 11-year ban had a dramatic effect on the landscape of public art. You could imagine artists who financially depended on producing works suddenly having a legal disempowerment through a moratorium that was caused by commercial interests. It decimated the creative economy for public art. And 10 years, 11 years, 12 years of that moratorium existing led to the destruction of many works, whitewashing. There was a lack of funding for maintenance. And so a lot of the works that you'll see, that I have two or three here, that capture a bit of that moment of this turning point where, it was very interesting to hear Isabel's experience of the moratorium and working to organize artists. There were multiple groups of entities working to address the moratorium. And when I first was in university, I actually collaborated with a group of alumni, artists, and students to do an assessment of what was the condition of murals in 2006. Very rapidly, the destruction of works across the city had led to whitewashing and disappearance of historic works. And so these pieces that were identified after the moratorium was lifted came from that original research and collaborations with artists. So I was able to work with artists, bring artists into the city from other cities that they had moved to be able to continue their work, to be able to earn a livelihood and be able to practice in their own creative capacity. So the image that I'm presenting here is of Charles Boko Freeman standing in front of Return to the Light. This piece was originally created in Highland Park on the Carlotta Apartments. This was a senior housing center that had been created, I believe, in 1992, 1993 through the citywide through the Neighborhood Pride program, which was a sponsored project with the City of LA's Department of Cultural Affairs and the Social and Public Art Resource Center. And Charles was one of the earliest members of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, had formed a chapter in Houston when he was young. And one of the programs that they implemented as a young person was the food programs that Noni would later depict in her pieces. And so Charles was at the time living in I believe in Carlsbad, so he was quite a bit away. And so I had befriended the property owner, and we were able to negotiate a free apartment for about a month and a half in Los Angeles. Can you believe that? For Charles to live in and be able to produce his work, his restoration, and so he was able to come and be able to work on this restoration. And he was much older in his years. And that's when I began to understand the history behind the intersection of justice work and the representation of history through narrative murals in this capacity. Charles, and in many ways, his partnership and friendship with Noni Olabisi was one that was very strong anchor points for the creative movement in Los Angeles. So when we began working and we began interviewing and figuring out who would be the supportive team that would be functioning to support the painting process of these works, Charles said, Noni, absolutely Noni. She's my hands, she's everything. They collaborated together, they knew each other's style and capacity. And so, we began working together, all of us, a crew of young folks, Noni and Charles, hanging 4 stories off a building off of the 110 freeway, right? This work is incredibly challenging physically and mentally, but what really drives you forward is the people that surround you in this process. So as part of this program, this initiative that took part across the county, or the city of Los Angeles, 9 different murals occurring at the same time, and these restorations, orchestrating these works at the same time, managing the material, the safety, the dynamics of teams. We were mentoring young folks. We were bringing folks from different backgrounds and capacities to learn and engage with these incredible, masterful artists. So for me personally, this was a massive anchor point in my development as an artist as well, being able to collaborate with these folks and have morning coffees before the grueling, 8-hour painting day in the sun, or going to the apartment afterwards and having incredible stories and conversations about what it was like to organize in Houston, what was it like to see, like the creation of these programs or these initiatives, or folks driving from one state to another to support each other as part of the work that the party was doing, as well as where that initial grounding for conceptualizing these works came from. Charles came with this very powerful perspective of responsibility as a creative person to be able to weave together what is really a powerful spiritual and responsive image of in this case the drawing together of loss and history with a vision of transformation. And so immediately after, and actually during the completion of Return to the Light, we began setting up and working with Noni directly to Protect and Serve, which was created in 1993. So the major restoration in 2016, we were able to treat the surface chemically to be able to return a lot of the vibrancy and flexibility of the paint film to be able to respond and absorb new pigment. So we were at all costs working to recover Noni's original brush marks. And it was really powerful to be able to work with her and introduce her to some of these techniques, while also being able to see her work in action. And I have some videos for you all that will, folks have not seen, of her process and her ability But Noni was just thrilled to have a wonderful team around her, supporting every capacity, her vision and her comfort, and the ability to just hone in on speed and capacity, right? So there's so much I could say about how we work together and what we learned about, you know, her work capacity and all that. But what's going on here? Oh, the videos are missing. Oh, I see. Okay. I want to show you 2 videos of her work process. So this is from the restoration. So it's after chemical treatments, after cleaning, reattachment of paint film that has peeled off the wall. There's a moment where the artist paints in any sort of areas that have been damaged. And so I don't know how many of you have seen her brushwork, but it's very unique. So let's see if this works. Oh, there we go. I'm just going to talk over the audio here. So what she's doing, so there's no drying retardants in this. This is pure pigment. There's no emulsion. There's no water that is slowing the painting. What she's doing is she's accumulating enormous quantities of paint on the surface. At the same time, she's loading other values on the same brush. And by varying the pressure between the end of the brush and the pigment that's on the wall and the pigment that's on the other side of the brush, she's able to create blends very rapidly without the paint drying and setting. This is how she was able to achieve these incredible gradients and the detail that she could create in that speed. This is something that's very unique in painting. When you create a gradient, there's a few different approaches. This is likely the most difficult of those approaches. Notice how creamy the surface looks. That's the amount of paint that is floating on that surface. The wall is so saturated that you can see the reflection of the brush on the paint surface. Can you see that? You can hear the paint. Can you hear that? It's unusual. I'll tell you, it requires so much intuition and experience of working in an exterior environment. It's 90 degrees outside. There's no way of shielding the sun from that surface. And somehow she's making this material behave like a fluid when it wants to harden on you. So this kind of capacity to bring light into a surface, to be able to cultivate a silenced history, I think that's where we begin to see the invention of an image that we've never seen come forward. She really was an inspiration, and Charles as well, in being able to bring forward a sense of responsibility for artists who have the capacity to render through imagination histories that have been omitted from history books, from archives. These are moments in which, when you stand in front of these pieces, you have a spiritual experience. And this is not only in the interpretation of the work, but in the execution of the work as well. And that's why I wanted to share that video. And there's Noni and the crew. So incredible levels of detail, skill, capacity, the infrastructure that is built around supporting an artist's vision. This is what's so unique about public art. and one that is necessary in order for that creative and spiritual moment to take place. It's a balance of materials, it's also vision, it's aesthetic, it's intuition. There's so many layers that are involved in this, and it's as much present as it is in the original execution as it is in the preservation of these works, and why these works are so important to continue to be revitalized and maintained and cared for. So in 2024, me and a few co-founders created Mural Colors. It has worked in collaboration with the City of Los Angeles initiative Mural Works through the Department of Cultural Affairs to identify, continue to maintain historic works across the City of Los Angeles. And so post Noni's passing, we were able to preserve Freedom Won't Wait. So this piece is currently up. You can experience it for yourself. It's located on 54th Street. And similarly, in honoring Noni's just life and energy and her ability to collaborate with folks, we preserved every element. This is a before and after photo. There's no paint that has been put on the wall. What had happened here is a urethane coating had begun to damage the surface underneath and alter the color and created a film that appears to fade the surface, but really with chemical processes and materials that we've invented over at Mural Colors, we were able to resaturate that surface and at the same time mentor a new generation of artists. So this was the crew that worked to restore the work. So we have a few folks that were part of the mentorship program here. And I'm happy to also say that as part of the Mural Works program, we will also be picking up where Noni's brush left off and bringing back that vibrancy to Troubled Island, which was a full circle moment because this was a piece that Noni created but was in collaboration with Charles Freeman. So we get to honor the memory of these incredible artists that had such a strong impact on our lives and our vision for the city. Thank you.
She made the wall scream. South Central knew her name before any museum did. She arrived, and the wall bore witness. A small brush, clippers in the other hand. Noni Olabisi, barber, painter, revolutionary, keeper of the faces the city would have buried in silence. She made it the wall's business. Artists are the visual historians of a culture. What the museums would not hold, she held it on the wall. From a small brush emerged monumental truth. She made the wall scream, and it is screaming still. I want to thank Karen Rapp and the institution, Loyola, for making this possible. Today, I'm going to do, in a short moment, what most speakers need to do. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it, then I'll tell you what I said. I want to talk briefly about Noni, my perspective on her, and then I want to also give her her rightful place in the canon of art history, a canon that tends to exclude the same folks and include the same folks with its elasticity meaning when someone uncovers the importance of someone that is not known yet, the canon tends to become elastic when it's appropriate, and then forget the person later. As long as I am teaching in the university's art writing, Noni will never be forgotten, because my students will write essays on her work. Noni was self-taught. Interesting term, self-taught, because sometimes the system and its machinery will not recognize someone who has went through the structure. Nothing wrong with that, but when someone has chosen not to go through the structure of the university, of the art school, they tend to be ignored. Noni, no formal training, anatomy books, a barber studying people, talking to people. Lived and worked in the same city where her murals were created, South Central Los Angeles. You know, when I was growing up in Los Angeles, it wasn't known as South Central Los Angeles. It was just home. But the media coined the phrase South Central Los Angeles and called it that. What was Noni's charge? What was her mission? It came from the first African American in Los Angeles history to attain the position of curatorial assistant at LACMA, godfather of the arts in Los Angeles, Cecil Ferguson. His charge, his motto, was that artists are the visual historians of a culture. If you want to know what happened during the '92 revolt, look at what the artists did. Listen to the poets, what they wrote about. Noni stands on the shoulders of muralists who came before her. She is in a rich tradition of muralists. Siqueiros, Orozco, Rivera, known as the Big Three. Then there's John Biggers, who used muralism to create collective community memory. And then there is Olabisi, out of Chicago, the Organization of Black American Culture, south side of Chicago, where you had poets, writers, artists trying to find ways to make work that would address the civil rights and Black power movements. And so the visual arts workshop came together and created the Wall of Respect, where they were paying tribute to African American heroes and sheroes in the culture. Then there's our own LA muralist Richard Wyatt, used public art as civic identity. Then there's John Wilson out of Boston, who used his figurative mastery to bear witness to what was happening historically to Black folk. However, Noni stands in the tradition of the figurative masters who mastered the figure. As an artist myself, having studied at some of the art schools in Los Angeles, California, Art Center in Otis, I know that head and hands, drawing portraits, drawing hands is difficult to do. Yet Noni mastered that. She did. She found her own voice and could express that. And so, standing on the shoulders of Charles White, Hale Woodruff, Laura Wheeler Waring, and Elizabeth Catlett. And I mention those because within the canon of African American art history, there were very few who really mastered the figure. Very few. And yet those are the legendary ones. I want to focus now on the importance of both Freedom Won't Wait and To Protect and Serve. You know, when I teach art writing in the Cal State system, how to analyze art, how to unpack it, it is so, you know, the default strategy when writing critically about African American art is to focus on the biographical perspective. Let's prove they existed. And it stops right there. And that's understandable because of the exclusion in the canon. But art historical critical writing has so many frameworks to unpack the artwork, to analyze it, the iconography and the symbolism. So I want to briefly just talk about Freedom Won't Wait and how Noni was able to capture the grief and the fury on the street, to look in folks' eyes and to see the reflection of, you know, history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure can rhyme, and to see that illustrated in her work. The symbolism, the collective pain and the collective demand. Freedom will not wait, ever. And yet Noni was able to tap into her creative process and at the same time feel the pain of the people and to express that. If you look at her mural, you see the bodies pressed against on the picture plane. That takes skill. And having went through the art school system myself, I know that at some point you got to find your voice. You have to. And having did a lot of independent study outside the art school system, I can identify with Noni. Finding your voice and being able to express that for the people. Because Noni's murals were taken out of the institutional context. Having a mural in an institution excludes folks who may not ever go to the institutional context. But having it on the street for the people makes it accessible. Noni's color palette, black, white, and the red that will detonate, that will really say, you know what, you need to look at this. And it's a testimony that the freedom will not wait. And moving on to protect and serve, interesting how Noni was able to capture the police violence. It was city commissioned, but it's ironic that she's expressing and illustrating what is happening and what has continued to happen to black folk. The Black Panther Party for self-defense. Young men and women, young black folk, studied the law, studied Marx and Lenin, dissecting and unpacking critiquing capitalism and finding the link between capitalism and racism and saying we're going to protect our own. We're going to patrol the police as they patrol our neighborhoods. We're going to give free food away, free clinics. We're going to establish liberation schools for our children in our neighborhood. Noni captured that in her mural, to protect and serve. By research and the same palette that read, it marks the historical record itself. And a city that tried to censor it, not going to happen. Noni was a muralist for the people, not the high celebrity who you can't approach. You could talk to her. Have you ever seen Noni smile at you? Ever see her with those eyes, analyze what you're saying, and respectfully disagree with you? And smile and say, well, you know, I don't know about that. Noni, a muralist for the people. Thank you.
Isabel, Carlos, and Richard, thank you so much. As I mentioned, Yreina had sent a PowerPoint. She's not able to come to LMU. Actually, now I'm realizing we may have been able to do a Zoom hybrid today. But I will walk through her slides that she sent and talk a little bit about what she has shared with us specifically. This second slide is a serigraph that Noni created in 1999 at Self-Help Graphics. It's one of the prints is on display in the gallery, and this was such a pivotal moment. All of you are going to walk out with some information that's really quite extraordinary, that Self-Help Graphics in 1999 for the first time invited a woman to invite all women to lead an atelier of maestras. This is now an ongoing tradition. And so Yreina invited the following artists to be part of this workshop. I have the list here. Laura Alvarez, Barbara Carrasco, Yreina Cervántez, Diane Gamboa, Pat Gomez, Margaret Guzman, Yolanda Lopez, Delilah Montoya, Rose Portillo, Fabiana Rodriguez. The master printer at the time was Jose Alpuche, and Noni Olabisi. And Noni Olabisi was, there is a photograph. I was unable personally to contact the photographer to get a better copy of it. But Noni created this piece at the same time that Barbara Carrasco created her Dolores print in 1999 at Self-Help Graphics, which I think all of us will be seeing in the media today, yesterday, and tomorrow. It was really a turning point in a lot of artists' careers, and I want to just say specifically that Noni, in addition to working at Self-Help and collaborating with artists like Yreina, worked extensively with Alma Lopez and had a business called Homegirl Productions, and they completed 3 permanent murals in Los Angeles and were also hired, as Judith indicated, to do some of the restoration work. Noni crossed communities in that sense, that she was as present and as active in the Latina, Latinx community from the 90s all the way throughout her life as the Black community in Los Angeles. And oh, I'm sorry.
I chose the icon because not only was I
That was unexpected, but let's watch it.
I chose the icon because not only was I struggling with belief, faith, and all of that, it allowed me to do research on something that I really wasn't sure of myself.
I thought it was really important as part of my growth as an artist. You know, certainly Mexican and Chicano and Latino art has always been at the heart of my work, but I have been influenced by many different cultures and artists. And so Noni is somebody that I had long admired as a muralist and a painter, and knew her and really wanted her to, you know, participate in the atelier as well. So she did a very powerful piece, King James Version. There's a commentary on colonization and Christianity, a very powerful piece.
To be invited on that project was very honorable because I like working with different artists and learning their techniques and style and all of that. Anything to enhance the work that I do or the work that I'm learning to do.
To be among great, powerful women and everybody having the opportunity to say something.
You know, when you get that many women in a room, something powerful will happen. And it did.
I'm glad that they were able to narrate. Thank you, Yreina. So here is a production crew for International Women's Day in 2009. Yreina is the best documenting artist. A lot of the pieces that she sent to me in order to be included in the vitrines in the show all had the most extensive labels. So here she's showing us Noni Olabisi on the far left, someone she doesn't know, Petal, Yreina, Rachel, Negrete Thorson, and Marisol Torres. And this is at, this is very recent, or very close to when Noni passed away in 2022. One of the Ofrenda installation exhibits at the Vincent Price Art Museum. And this is a very wonderful image of the solo exhibition that was organized at Vincent Price. I'm proud to say that I invited Yreina to have her solo show there, and the show was realized by Anna Guajardo, and I think was probably the largest solo show that Yreina had had at that time. And you see Mary Lise, Margaret Guzman, Yreina, Barbara Carrasco, Noni together. And this is an image that I have seen in Noni's archive. Noni often made works, short-term works for festivals in Los Angeles. The masks in the Laband would be an example of that, although this is not her piece here. And this is her son, Oronde Spears. The year that Noni passed away in 2022, Self-Help Graphics has, of course, this amazing tradition of having ofrendas, altars, and this is an altar that was put together by a whole group of people that you can see listed. It was called Gone to a Higher Level, and the basis for this scaffolding is, for this altar is the type of scaffolding that Noni would have been on making her murals. Above is a painting of Noni by the artist Michael Massenburg, and below the Protect and Serve mural. And more images of the ofrenda at Self-Help in 2022, and this is also depicted in the exhibition. I noticed in several of Noni's permanent works that, for example, she and Alma Lopez, they would kind of divide up the space of the mural in a left and a right format, and then each approach a similar kind of prompt about historical figures or about the environment. A library, for example, where their work was going to be housed, and then draw from their own unique cultural perspectives and really find the way of blending the two. Noni would almost exclusively work in the color red, and then often Alma would work in blue, and they would really harmonize their stories together, which were quite beautiful. And here's another shot of Arande, and then on the left is this itty-bitty altar that Barbara loves making miniatures, so it's a tiny little altar. So it's like the mini version of the whole altar as a tiny little scaffolding. And Renee is actually in the audience today on the far right, and Michael Massenburg. And this gorgeous photo of Noni with Cecil Ferguson in the background appeared in the LA Times. It was also the photo when the LA Times ran her obituary. And this is really the last photo of Noni that I know of. It was when she was an artist at Blue Roof. I saw her there in February of 2022. It was her first opportunity to make work without really having a charge. And I think Isabel sort of talked about that in her presentation. Noni thinking about what it was that she was going to do in her first mural in 1992, and Spark was able to find that original sketch of the 4 women that Noni had thought about putting up as portraits. I call it kind of like a Mount Rushmore style composition, but not necessarily having the charge yet was challenging for her. And the same was true at the Arts of Blue Roof, that initially coming into the space there, which she was the second artist at this nonprofit on Broadway in 76, I believe. They're up to 23 artists now, offering artists who identify as women, primarily women of color, a space to create work. In the beginning, Noni set out to make work, but then wasn't necessarily given a job or a call. And so she brought her own self-portrait that she had made in 2018 into the studio, and that became then the inspiration for the body of work that she made at the Arts of Blue Roof, in which she allowed herself for the very first time ever to play and to be an artist who was making work for the sheer joy and the experience. Not that I think she didn't love making her murals too, but really having the sense of being like a child. And she described that her grandson, Jabari, had watched her paint as a child. And so she felt like now she was watching the way that he painted as a child. And she put that in her work. And the work is in the little kind of center area of the Laband now. So it's a beautiful closing photo. Yreina asked me to read something, which I am very happy to do. This is dedicated to Noni, the Good Painter by Yreina. The Ta Quilo, the painter, was of utmost importance in the, can you help me now? Nahuatl culture, for it was he, she who painted the codices. Before he, she began to paint, it was necessary for him, her, to learn how to converse with this heart. He, she had to become, and I apologize, the Yotetol, one with a heart rooted in God, into which had entered all the symbolism and creative force of the Nuat religion. With God in his, her heart, he, she would then attempt to transfer the symbols of divinity into his, her paintings, codices, and murals. And in order to be successful in this, he, she had to know better than anyone else the colors of all the flowers, as though he, she were a Toltec. The good painter is a Toltec, an artist. He, she creates with red and black ink, with black water. The good painter is wise. God is in his, her heart. He, she puts divinity into things. He, she converses with his own heart. He, she knows the colors. He, she applies them and shades them. He, she draws feet and faces. He, she puts in the shadows. He, she achieves perfection. He, she paints the colors of all the flowers as if he, she were a Toltec. This is from the book Aztec Thought and Culture, Creator of a Way of Life. So I'd love to invite the three speakers to sit with me, and then we can take your questions and see if there are any points that we would like to kind of go deeper on. Thank you.
My name is Michael Massenberg, so congratulations on this beautiful spiritual experience we were having, and really appreciate it. So my question would be like, what do you see as far as next for Noni, as far as you've done this, you planted a seed, now we want to keep it growing. Mm-hmm. Is there going to be like a book on her life, or going to be a traveling exhibition under your supervision? Would that work?
Yes, so there definitely is a publication in the works, and the intention, and thank you, Michael, for also being a supporter of the show and talking with me about your relationship with Noni. It will contain work in the show, so it will document all the work, and then it's also going to have a section of the work that Noni made really early in her career that her son does not know the location of, but since there were slides, I'm really very committed to being able to show the breadth of as much work as possible. So yes, and Richard will be contributing the main essay about Noni. The second question about what's next, Armando Pulido from the Huntington will be speaking in the next session, and there is now a next moment of great appreciation of Noni as an artist that will be happening at the Huntington in June. And as far as traveling, I think I may have said this to you, Carlos. I don't remember at the opening. I mean, I'm very open to do it. It's, I think, a very LA-based exhibition visually, but I think Noni's work transcends Los Angeles. So thank you for the question.
Hi, I'm Kaylin Youngblood. I have a question for Carlos. The last mural that you showed in your slide, did you speak about restoring it? Are you guys planning to restore that mural of Noni's, or is that happening sometime soon in the future? Is that going to be a community thing that people can be a part of? Or?
Yes, absolutely. Is this one? Yes. Through the same Mural Works program, there will be an announcement of the opportunities to be able to collaborate at the William Grant Stills Art Center, which is where the Troubled Island is. And fortunately, in connecting with Karen and Armando, there's going to be the potential to do a little more. So on top of there being opportunities to engage with us and take on a little bit of the skill sets around community mural conservation, there'll be also this other kind of layering of programming that's going to be happening in conjunction. So we're really happy this wasn't planned. It just so happens that the city of Los Angeles takes a very long time to process contracts. So now we're here. And so if there are interests, please reach out to us. And Instagram is the best way to be able to connect with us for the general public.
Hi. The mural that she did, the Black Panthers off of Jefferson and Avenue, is like a building like that. Hey.
Could you give your name, please, Mr. Finley?
My name. Hi, I'm Ron Finley, also known as the Gangster Gardener. I was wondering, like a mural like that, that's so, to me, important to the city, especially South Central. Is that, how do we preserve something like that? The building can be sold, city don't own it. How can we make that where they can't? Is something like that in the works?
It requires heavy vigilance at the community level, constant communication with city agents. We've facilitated a lot of engagement in that regard. Yes, properties have sold. There have been instances where it's come close. A lot of face-to-face negotiations, a lot of mobilization. We need to be better at informing the general public that this level of investment and ongoing interest is present in these pieces, because these works stand as monuments, and as they age, they require not only maintenance, but just a legal framework that can strengthen those protections, because at the end of the day, all murals are vulnerable to erasure, and the law does not protect artists or artists' estates in the way that could be enforceable under certain conditions. So it's a lot of soft power, it's a lot of coordination. I maintain really close relationships with the Department of Cultural Affairs. They have been fantastic collaborators and partners, and with the family, but it is very much a collaboration that requires expansion and constant new strategies. But yeah, it is a challenge, and we really want the community to know that if anything changes, if anything happens, that there are people with great investment willing to do everything it takes to protect the work and step in. But yeah, it has happened multiple times in multiple ways, and it's a great conversation.
I just would like to add something to what Carlos just said. During the peak of the mural movement in Los Angeles, we have over 4,500 murals in our city. During the mural moratorium, hundreds were erased by the city because they were heavily tagged for political reasons or because our weather. But one of the important things that we need to bring attention to the community is that we need to be more generous with public art. Like the people in New York, where people are born knowing that they need to support public art or art in general. We have big problems here getting the funding to restore our history. Our history gets erased every single day. And today, more than ever. So we need to make the community at large aware of the money that it takes to restore, besides the bureaucracy of the city, we need to find the ways to get the funding to restore our murals, to keep our history alive. Because, like you said earlier, Noni was a muralist of the people. That's where our story is told. That's what we need. Not everybody has access to college and university. Thank you for saying that. Yes, that's what I wanted to say about that.
I want to also add something else. The other side of the coin is that we have a multitude of artists, contrast to writers who can write about the work. And I want to thank Karen for really pushing that catalog, because at the schools that I teach at, that will go in the library where the lives are buried at. The students will have to check out that catalog and read and read. Also, the idea of writing about the work, teaching both online and in person, the image is there, either in an online course or in a catalog. And so the fact that in the university setting, the students can look at that and see a different story. Even in a course I taught at Bowie State University in Maryland, fully online, they did an essay about Judith Hernandez's work. It was an assignment. And so I'm constantly trying to push and expand the canon. So the catalog, both go hand in hand.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Finley, for the question. It actually came up during the research phase, what the status of the building is off of Jefferson. Here's a wonderful story to kind of balance that the building on 54th, where Noni's original mural is, was sold in March of 2025, and it was purchased as a new center for adults with disabilities to learn trades. And in that particular location, one of the main trades will be learning to be a barber. And it is in the building where the legacies of Good Fred, the Ellis family, had their barber shops. It's across the street from where Noni worked at the Rutan Hair Salon. I found, I mean, especially with social media and looking, for example, at your Instagram, it seems to me that if in the past, a third of the neighborhood pride murals that Spark co-produced with the city no longer exist. I looked this up. So out of more than 100, about 30 at least are gone, that with Noni's work really putting it out there, so to speak. I did message Mayor Karen Bass and Congresswoman Sydney Kamlager-Dove to say, this show is at the Laband and here's what's being featured in it, thinking that that building with To Protect and Serve is in the process of being possibly put on the market and purchased, and that it would be a travesty for the new owner not to treat the mural with the respect that it deserves. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mhm. Speak into the microphone, please, Judith.
Isabel, my dear friend, we've talked about, especially when I came back to Los Angeles in 2010, and she pulled me into the mural ordinance, meetings that I went to, which I thought were amazing. The concern that people have about public art, I think there's two sides of that. I agree with, was that Michael Massenberg? Hi. Is that I have always been of the opinion that because it is in the public, I think artists have to have some recognition that there is an expiration date for some things, because so many of them are topical. They're about the present. They become irrelevant as time passes. And unless they're remarkable works of art, whatever measure you use to define, an important work of art, there should be some plan in a city, in a community, for the preservation of those, without making people nuts about, saving every little thing that's, in the area. And the other reason I believe in that is that I have no problem with my things disappearing. Fortunately, the things of mine that have disappeared were just a consequence of things being built too close to where they had been. But I think that it gives younger artists an opportunity to have a wall that was someone else's for a reasonable amount of time, and now they have the experience and probably that kind of respect for being able to use a wall that was once used by Richard Wyatt or someone to make something, and to have that over there over their heads or in their minds as that legacy, resides in that wall on that building, and they have to be really up to snuff to do something that's worthy. So it's a tough thing. It's not like doing studio art.
Yeah, and there are programs like for artists who enter public art to be in a rotating kind of structure. But I would argue that for Noni, I do see her as her work does stand out, and it is really the reason that I've imagined for 15 years to take that beautiful piece and bring it into the gallery. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would add there are many walls that could be painted and should be painted.
Well, Dominique's has been patiently waiting.
I just, was wondering, can cultural landmark status be applied to murals, and particularly for what we're discussing in regards to Noni's murals? Would that help in any capacity?
Yeah, so the framework and the mechanism would be to create and register a restrictive covenant that would be added to the deed of the property that would carry through the sale of properties, like one after another, after another. And so murals within the framework that you just mentioned tend to have like a time requirement, but that time requirement has changed. It's more flexible, but what has teeth is really a covenant that applies pressure and restrictions to the physical building's alteration to the owners, but also in connection with the registrar, the county registrar, and being able to have that enforcement carry forward. Without that, it's very challenging to be able to stop an alteration of a building. So the city has been working on certain mechanisms and innovations. Other cities have implemented it much more successfully. It's a matter of advocacy, lobbying, educating our elected officials that this is something that has to happen in an expedited fashion.
So in the interest of time, and maybe to continue the question raised about who decides, we have a reception in the courtyard. The One Grain of Sand Puppet Theater will be setting up in this space. When you return in maybe 20 minutes or so, we'll start that program, and then session 2 will be following One Grain of Sand. Thank you to the presenters. It's wonderful.
Halale ke jali ala, jali ala, halale ke jali ala, halale ke masi ala, halale ke jali ala, jali ala, halale ke jali ala.
Today, we gather to honor the life and legacy of Noni Olabisi, world-renowned muralist, mentor to the youth, cultural treasure, transformational artist, spiritual being, barber, and beloved community member. Noni Olabisi. Now you can clap. Noni was born in St. Louis, Missouri. By the age of 3, her mother died and her challenges began, or began generations before. Noni grew up and graduated from Southwest College. You know Southwest College, over on 1600 Imperial Highway. Yeah. She continued to paint signs at the sign shop, George Evans' father's shop, to create paintings and to raise her beloved son, Orande, while supporting the family as a barber. One day, at the barbershop in 1992, at Good Fred's La Routan Barbershop at 54th and Western, we were all sitting in the barbershop looking at the Rodney King verdict. And I mean, the place was real tense, and everybody was just piled up in there and crowded and looking for the verdict. When they announced those guys not guilty, boy, it was like the emotion on people's face. Oh, man. You know what that means? That it's open season on black people. That means you can do anything you want to a race of people and get away with it. And anytime you attack black people or Latino people or people that are really considered minorities, you get away with it. And it's okay to do it, and it's just wrong. That's injustice. And that's the reason why the streets were calling out no justice, no peace. And that's the truth. You're not going to get no peace if you have no justice.
No justice, no peace.
Noni got to work painting her mural, Freedom Won't Wait. she enlisted her barber friend, Renee, to assist her.
And her son, Aronde.
Hey, this is too angry, you know? Why do you want to put this up? Because it's the truth. We want to close our eyes to the truth, and it's time for us to keep our eyes open and start looking at what's happening and start dealing. Most of these people here are just regular people like you and me. The only figure here that might be recognizable is Harriet Tubman. I chose Harriet for the center figure because she is the strongest in this piece. She's the one who carried the slaves and helped them escape from the south to the north. So I wanted to make her this symbol because really this piece is about freedom.
You! For me, this is a monument. And for centuries, the monuments tell the stories of the people that existed there for this neighborhood and all our neighborhoods, hopefully around the spectrum of where we live, what we call South Central. Now, they will represent what the people feel, what they're thinking, and the situation we've been in. Now, we've evolved from that to this.
To me, the artist's paintbrush and his pencil and his canvas is his strongest revolution because I can get out there and throw and break a glass, but that's not going to tell nothing. That's not going to accomplish anything. It's just a glass broke. But if I tell it in my work, then maybe it can reach a lot of people. It would have been nice to bust a window. It would have been real nice, but I chose to bust it this way. Noni continued to paint the truth as she saw it through powerful murals. In 1995, she began Protect and Serve, a history of the Black Panther Party. This mural commemorates the Black Panther Party and its unforgettable contribution to African American history. And the mural is dedicated to all political prisoners, as well as those who lost their lives fighting for truth, justice, and freedom. The spirit of these brothers and sisters cannot and will not die. All power to the people.
Power to the people.
Yeah, well, this mural, it was actually approved. It was chosen by a city commission. And then when it was sent in for a routine check for permissions, it was turned down as too political.
Leaders in the Black community, joined by the sponsoring group Spark, Social, and Anti-Resource Center, mounted a long and unlimited successful campaign and raised the funds to get the mural produced.
The painting began right over there at 11th and Jefferson. Oh, look there. That's Black Panther leaders Huey Newton and Elaine Brown. See, there's the Black Panther Party's distribution of clothing, food, and medical care to members of the community in need. That was the start of mandatory school lunch program in public schools today. And the brutality of the times. Lynch-minded KKK members, corrupt judicial systems with bound and gagged Bobby Seale at his trial. Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Back at the barber shop.
You making my cut nice? Make sure my line is straight.
Your line is crooked. You went to a wrong barber before.
I've been under this dryer too long. It's hot.
I got the AC fixed yesterday. Just keep breaking down.
I want my money back. What time was my appointment?
You didn't even pay for the last cut. What are you talking about, man? Hey. Oh. Police raid the shop in retaliation. All this did not stop Noni from creating her powerful murals. In 2002, the LA Department of Cultural Affairs commissioned Noni to create a mural for the William Grant Still Art Center that would express the contributions that William Grant Still made to the world. Charles Boko Freeman assisted Noni in her creation of the mural. Troubled Island tells the story of the 1791 slave rebellion in Haiti, which inspired William Grant Still's opera, Troubled Island. The viewer experiences, dramatically, the pain and suffering of the slaves and the rise to power of Jean-Jacques Dessalines, leader of the slave revolt. In the center of the pictorial saga is William Grant Still, with his spiritual eye depicted in the middle of his forehead, conducts his powerful operatic score that expresses the need for a new era. I started thinking about the William Grant Still's mural and Troubled Island and what the Haitians did and what the dancers did before they actually went into war, or I won't say war, with survival mode of trying not to be in slavery, you know, and let's rebel against slavery. And I thought, oh my God, this is like a call and response, because the drummers called and the women did their dance and they had their ceremony and they feel and I feel, and then it anointed the men and the women that were enslaved and the Catholics, and they anointed them with the strength to fight to their death and be free. And everything is calling on God or the Creator or nature to anoint us with the strength to survive or the strength to endure. So all that came up and it came out.
Wait in the water. Wait in the water, children. Wait in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Through the years, Noni continued her work, creating paintings for the people, for women's shelters, theaters and theatrical productions, council officers, and more.
God's gonna trouble the water. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Oh yeah, God's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble the water. The water. The water.
Hands return again and again.
Hold on. Just a little while longer. Hold on. Just a little while longer. Hold on. Just a little while longer. Everything's gonna be alright. Fight on. Just a little while longer. Fight on. Just a little while longer. Fight on. Just a little while longer. Everything gonna be alright. Yeah. Gonna be alright. Yeah. Gonna be alright. Fight on. A little while longer. Everything be alright. Everything, 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 everything gonna be alright.
And always the yellow dot. Not that I'm all that and a bag of chips, but if you really pay attention to nature, nature will teach us a whole lot about this journey through life, because as long as there's life and everything yields to the sun, everything, in my observation, everything yields to the light. And if you have a plant, and if there's any light anywhere, the plant or something will go towards the light. So basically, you see, there's hope, even though it might not look like that to you all the time. Noni generously devoted time and energy to leading youth in mural and banner projects, USC Black History Month banners, Crenshaw Expo banners, Building Healthy Communities mural, transportation justice murals, and more. South LA alley murals, many more.
Noni,
we love you.
You here, Noni?
By dozens of youth and
Noni,
community
can I bring my
members
friends to come paint?
who transform their formerly dangerous alleys
I want to bring my aunts and my cousins too. We love your art.
I'm gonna
into
bring my
artwork.
cousin too. Noni, can I bring my cousin?
that shines bright into the nearby schoolyard.
I think my brother would love this.
Okay, but
I'm
make sure they
coming.
bring some water, at least, and some paintbrushes.
Okay, Noni, I'm bringing the whole neighborhood.
I'll bring the sandwiches. Oh, I gotta feed all these
Sandwiches.
kids.
I'm bringing everybody.
Everybody.
Me too. Noni, I'm gonna bring you some candy next time, I promise. You so sweet.
You too. Thank you. On special days, she would always rush home on time to cook for her beloved grandson, Jabari. Oh my God. The world is beautiful. And the world out there, it's a greater education when you can hear, because everything talks to you. Noni continued her mentoring of youth in the making of Mask to honor the ancestors. In the summer of 2021, Noni announced that she would not be communicating with anyone for a few months. She had her first artist in residence
at the Blue Roof Studios and did not want to waste a moment of the time she had painting in that studio. It was time to paint for herself. Artist in residency. The first painting she created was called 5 Years Old. I don't have many baby pictures of me. And actually, that's a picture of me, quickly, of someone being passed on to somebody when your mom passed away and you being passed around. This lady who kept me had this picture taken, and it's the only picture that I felt like I feel happy and loved. So I wanted to capture the essence of strength. The reason why I wanted to recreate that is because as a child, I never had a chance to play. And this entire exhibit on becoming is part of allowing the little girl and me to play. Now, I'm leaping into the light, and with all of me, let all of me be visible, because at one time, I was not visible, and I always wanted to be visible my whole life. The yellow dot on mostly everything that I create is when the light came to me out of my sadness, and it made me happy. And I realized that that same light, God force, is within us all. And we can call on it at any given time. And at this particular time, it's been like my savior or something that gives me inspiration and love.
Grandma's hands clapped in church on Sunday morning. Grandma's hands played the tambourine so well. Grandma's hands used to issue out a warning. She'd say, "Noni, don't you run so fast. Might fall on a piece of glass." It might be snakes there in the grass, grandma's hands. Mm-hmm. 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 Oh, well, may the work I've done speak for me. May the work I've done speak for me. When I'm resting away on that day, may my works speak for me. May my service speak for me. Noni Olabisi!
Noni Olabisi!
So the first session speakers focused quite a bit on Noni as a muralist and particularly the work that she did in the 1990s. And in this second session, we will talk more in depth about Noni's Troubled Island mural and painting and how it will be exhibited this summer at the Huntington Museum, as well as Noni's long-time collaboration with the arts organization LA Commons. Karen Mack, the executive director, will be sharing. And then concluding with one particular project that Noni was in collaboration with many artists. It was a project from the LA Commons organization and led by Dominique Moody.
I just wanted to say thank you all for being here, and that was an incredibly beautiful performance. Kind of hard to, get into it right after that, but I didn't have the privilege of meeting Noni. Really enjoyed learning about her life and work through this exhibition and her inclusion in it that I will show more about. And thank you to Karen for inviting me. It truly is an honor to be here and to share this with you, and to Armando for working so closely with us to include this work, really important work in our exhibition. So just to give some grounding and introduction to the exhibition. It is titled This Land Is, and is the Huntington's anchor exhibition commemorating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Part of a larger institutional initiative, but this project is particularly rooted in the library collections and will open in June 14th. And I'm just one part of this curatorial team, along with Josh Garrett Davis, curator of Western American History, and Lindy Lettinen, curator of photography at the Huntington. So this exhibition broadly looks at American history through the theme of land. And it uses 6 terms to organize the exhibition that unite both botanical meaning with cultural and historical meaning as well. The 6 sections are roots, uprootings, amendments, edge effects, disturbances, and regenerations. There are objects from well before 1776 into the present, and Noni's work in the exhibition, which is featured in disturbances, as you see here, is actually the largest piece in the entire show, which has currently at about 170 objects. And to provide some more context into kind of scope of the exhibition and what we're hoping to achieve with it, we wanted to first start with this juxtaposition of our copy of the Declaration of Independence and a guitar by American folk singer Woody Guthrie. This copy includes annotations by the Secretary of New York's Provincial Congress from 1776. And on the back of the document, which you can't see here, the Secretary tallied the votes that unanimously adopted the Declaration, making New York the 13th colony to do so and solidifying the nation's unity in that moment. Woody Guthrie, or on the right, the guitar formerly owned by Woody Guthrie, kind of declared a different declaration that was cemented in American culture with his iconic "This Land Is Your Land" song, which the exhibition is also named after. Guthrie famously inscribed his instruments with the phrase, "This machine kills fascists," which you can see very faintly on the back of the guitar on the right. And we believe that this guitar from the Museum of Pop Culture's collection is the first to be inscribed with this phrase. Together, these objects invite us to look a bit closer about what might just be on the other side of what we know to be familiar and true. And when thinking about the American Revolution, Noni offered a way for us to consider a broader age of revolutions that included Haiti through her Troubled Island painting. So this painting proudly stands within the disturbances section of our exhibition. An environmental disturbance can be described as a force that disrupts and changes a biological community, such as a fire, floods, or deforestation. And throughout American histories, wars of liberation and imperial expansion have similarly left their imprint on the land. Here, though, Noni focuses on the Haitian Revolution via William Grant Still's Troubled Island opera from 1949. It offers an epic retelling of the life of Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who became the first emperor of Haiti between 1804 and 1806, after leading the former colony, named Saint-Domingue, to independence. Across 3 acts, Dessalines moves from plotting a slave revolt to ruling in an ostentatious and exploitative manner before his eventual assassination. Noni's Troubled Island, created with assistance from Charles Freeman, originated as a mural at the William Grant Still Art Center in Los Angeles, and is similarly divided in 3 acts. At left, enslaved women, men, and children of the colony of Saint-Domingue suffer at the hands of French colonists. At center, a lightning strike reveals 2 portraits of Still, at different stages of his life, conducting the opera. The painting culminates in a powerful scene showing enslaved men claiming their freedom by fighting their oppressors. It ends with a triumphant portrait of Dessalines dressed in a uniform of a French military officer. The painting is not only striking for its imagery, but also for its charged red color palette. This image on the screen, of course, can only convey a fraction of this urgency, the movement, and the pride that the color helps to convey on canvas. And I should clarify that this painting is a rendering of the mural that we can show in the exhibition, but is not the same as, it's not the one at the William Grant Still Center in Los Angeles. And Noni also anointed Dr. Still with the yellow dot, which I've come to learn is a sort of spiritual eye, as we've discussed today as well. And I see this as her way of embedding her own spirituality into the memory of the Haitian Revolution. I've also included a few images that I took of the mural here for reference and comparison. You can see some of the red has faded over time. And I was excited to learn at the opening of Noni's studio, of Noni's solo show here through Carlos, that this mural will also be restored in coming months. So I'm sure you're wondering how folks at the Huntington in Pasadena came to include this painting that was originally created just off of West Adams in LA. So a bit of the story here is that Langston Hughes, who like Dr. Still was a central figure of the Black Renaissance, wrote the libretto for Troubled Island, of which the Huntington holds a copy. This copy, though, is specifically dedicated to judge, attorney, and civil rights activist Lauren Miller, whose papers are also housed at the Huntington. Thus, the story of Troubled Island ripples throughout Los Angeles in multiple ways, bridging Haiti's history and with the stories Noni was painting in our own backyard. And although Haiti has never been part of the United States, it has played an outsized role in U.S. history. France's support for the American Revolution, financed in part by wealth extracted from the enslaved labor of Saint-Domingue and other colonies, proved crucial to American independence. When enslaved Haitians overthrew French rule in the Haitian Revolution, U.S. slaveholders feared the spread of rebellion, while enslaved African Americans nurtured hope of a similar liberation. The U.S. government did not recognize Haiti's nationhood until 1862, after southern states had seceded from the Union and could no longer vote against it. And so just to give you some context here, I will now share some of the materials that we're contextualizing this painting with as well in the exhibition, including the libretto by Langston Hughes. First, we continue to explore the ways that the Haitian Revolution has inspired African American literature and culture with a copy of Dessalines, a dramatic tale written by William Edgar Easton. This romantic melodrama was published in 1893 in Galveston, Texas, and explored the complex racial dynamics of early Haiti. Above all, Easton was concerned with celebrating Black history in a moment when American popular culture did anything but that. Easton's father served in the American Revolution, and his mother immigrated from Haiti, which granted the author a deeply personal connection to this history as well. And you can see a photo of him with his son at right here from the UCLA collections. Other materials, like this map from 1723, show Haiti as a colony of Saint-Domingue that was of great economic value to Spain and France well before the founding of the United States. This map describes the island by the earlier name of Hispaniola that was discovered by the Spanish in 1492. It also shows the mountains that characterize the landscape, which inspired the name of the free nation. Haiti comes from an indigenous Taino word that means land of high mountains or mountainous land. The island's plantation economies thrived on enslaved labor. Coffee and sugar were central to these global extractive networks in Saint-Domingue. These two illustrations come from an 8-volume set of botanical studies that describe the picturesque and medicinal plants of the Caribbean. It includes both native tropical plants and crops like sugar and cotton, pictured here, that were also the basis of these brutal plantation systems. Its author, Michel de Cortés, was a French physician and amateur botanist in Saint-Domingue who collected plants and learned local remedies amid the Haitian Revolution. He was briefly protected by another of Haiti's leaders, Toussaint Louverture, before he eventually fled to France to publish this compendium. Our collections illuminate the ties between Louverture and American presidents who had their own economic relationships with the early colony. This letter, penned to then-President John Adams, showed Louverture inquiring about reduced trade with the young nation shortly after Haiti proclaimed freedom. And it should be stated here that the US at this time was still deciding how to feel about its support for Haiti, as of course it had threatened the institution of slavery in the US. And finally, the papers of Lauren Miller bring us to the 20th century to show the continued relationship between Haiti and the US. Miller collected a series of news clippings that highlighted the economic relationship between the two nations. This clipping from the Afro-American newspaper tells about a treaty signed between the two in 1933, particularly following the end of the American occupation that began in 1915. After a period of political unrest in Haiti, an executive at City National Bank in New York, which is now Citibank, persuaded the Department of State to intervene in Haiti's national bank. With this treaty, the US formally announced the withdrawal of its troops from Haiti and relinquished control. Other headlines document ongoing American economic aid to Haiti during this period, which point to the ways Haiti's freedom has economically cost them. So, as you can see, Troubled Island allows us to tell a local and international story all at once. In these broad streets of American history, Noni is a major voice in the exhibition, both for the memory of this age of revolutions in the late 18th and early 19th century, but also to the community of those she inspired with her murals in Los Angeles. In order to help us tell this many-layered story in the exhibition, we are also grateful to producer and filmmaker Disha Deshawn and her team, which includes Jerry Henry and Sushila Love, for working with us to produce a short documentary film to honor Noni and the Troubled Island mural that will be shown in the exhibition alongside the painting. We're also grateful to our partners, Amitis Motivali, director of the William Grant Still Art Center, and Felix Jean-Louis, a professor of history at the University of California at Irvine, for providing more context into this story. And of course to Karen for generously offering insight into Noni's practice and working with our many changing timelines, and to Arande for his trust and willingness to work with us to share more about his mother's unwavering beliefs that shine so brightly through her art. And to Noni, of course, for inspiring many generations to come to use their voice to believe to fight for what they believe is true. Thank you.
I tell you, from the streets of South LA to the halls of the Huntington, kind of incredible, that trajectory, right? Really, I'm kind of blown away by the Huntingtons, you know, just the context that's created around the work, like the letter from Toussaint Louverture. Wow. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And, when thinking about this presentation, it was really, what led to this deep connection that Noni had with our organization. When I started LA Commons 25 plus years ago now, it was a spiritual journey for me, really thinking about what I had to offer to the world, based on my passions and my, special talents. And this idea of really bringing people together to use art as a way of building those connections, between people, which ultimately is really about tapping our humanity and then using that as a way to connect to the humanity of others. At this moment in particular, that is so resonant because we are really struggling. We have this environment that is actively separating us. So the opportunity to use and leverage the power of artistic engagement to strengthen those bonds is really very powerful. And so, the opportunity that I've had to really create something, and through that, create myself, really, come into my own, is really analogous to Noni and the process that I witnessed both, through our direct relationship with her, but also being involved in the exhibition and seeing what happened before. The moment when she was in the barbershop and the 92 Rebellion launched, I feel like that was a pivotal moment for her. Just want you to know, this is our mission statement, which, really reflects what I just said, but there's more puppets by Beth, if you didn't notice, who, it's kind of interesting. I don't see Jamie here anymore, but people here who were on the journey with me when, as I've come to, begin this organization and sustain it. A lot of our work is really about activating young people, which it's interesting when Noni, I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dominique and Beth, but Noni was a little bit reluctant in this role because she was very focused on herself as an artist and really realizing her calling, I think. She really did have a calling, and her paintbrush was her megaphone. And so, having to turn to others and, sort of lower her voice to raise the voice of others was a little bit, challenging, I think, in the beginning. But she ultimately stepped into it, and it was really powerful, I think, to watch that process. I really appreciated watching her evolution. The first project we worked on, and this one also features Dominique, who was the lead on this effort, but I don't think I need to tell you which one is Noni's, right? This was a project for Metro that we did to herald the opening of the expo line, and it was really a beautiful endeavor with 4 artists involved, including Noni. And here's Noni, looking like she's fitting right in with the team of youth and the council person even, like she wasn't aiming anything at him. And Beth there, can you recognize Beth? How long ago was that, Beth? Like, I think it was 2008, so almost 20 years ago. That was beautiful. So another project we did was with USC. I think this is one of my favorite projects. It's kind of like, she's on the streets, like drawing the Black Panther, like on the total opposite. And then while we're like with the, the dark side at USC, because this project was a Black History Month project at USC. So, like Noni, here you are, like in the belly of the beast. So, her trajectory as this activist, which I totally relate to her because that is really part of me, really took her into that place where she was able to lift up her voice on Truesdale Avenue, which, that's the heart of USC, and really, bringing this beautiful statement about Blackness, like unapologetically Black-focused art, on USC Truesdale Avenue to celebrate Black history. Here she is again with a group of young people and the beautiful work that was created, and just again looking like the teacher that she had become, and fulfilling the role and being very comfortable stepping into. I love this one because it's really like the activists together, really shouting the message of the artwork. A few other works. This, I had to put this one in because that really, again, underscores that aspect of her and just the beauty. This was another project we did with, it was an alley mural project with the council office and one of the organizations that does that environmental work. Was it Lane? Was it, what was? Oh yeah, Trust for Public Land. Anyway, a beautiful initiative again that, this was at least the third time she worked with a group of youth to realize a project, and, just became very natural. And we have a film, and one of the young participants, she is so eloquent about the process of working with Noni and how that really supported her in lifting up her voice. She felt special and supported, and it just was it became a very important part of who Noni was, I think. And this is the final image, which I think exemplifies her, this very, much a curious path that she, I think, was on from the beginning, but this really exemplifies her curiosity going into mask making and working with us on the Mask Festival. Again, she really embedded, I think, in our organization because the alignment in the spirituality of the work of, supporting people and finding their own creativity as a means to create themselves, and also the activism that is very inherent in our work to give people the opportunity to lift up their voices in community through art, and and to promote the equity and the presence that is important as we, focus on moving toward a society that really does value everyone. So thank you very much, and looking forward to hearing from Dominique.
Good afternoon, everyone. This has been a tremendous, even for myself to find new things about Noni. Even when you're a fellow artist and when you're a friend, there's always something new that you learn about someone through others and the community that embraced her and continue to do so. I really wanted to bring into light a little bit more about really her last year. And to me, when Karen approached and invited me to talk, I then really had to remember more details about what that experience was, both for Noni and what she shared with me, but also for myself, because it was at a time when all of us were deeply in the midst of this pause called the pandemic. And when Karen Black and LA Commons and Beth approached me about the idea of doing a project, first I was like, how can we possibly do a project? All of our projects in the past had been in person and have been direct, and we gathered together. And that is how I've often done my social practice work and my collaborations. And how do you then do an art project with the community and be remote? And we were all starting to learn how to be remote. And that was, really important. So for me as a lead artist, I was asked, who would I choose to be a part of this project where we rise and creating our next LA, if we could get through this pandemic. And also, how would we tell this story? How would we look and address the issues of mental health, as well as our strengths and the ways to protect our community? And so I had been in lead roles before, but I felt like at this moment, doing this project, I wanted both to work with an artist that I was really wanting to see what could happen, how the dynamics could work together with different artists approaching different things. And Noni was on the top of my list because she was part of a community and a place. The areas of Leimert Park were really important to her as an artist. But all the other artists too, I wanted, especially younger artists, so that we could have an experience working together with new, fresh artists, as well as the artists I knew. And this image of Leimert Park was really important because as we developed the project and we wanted to look at what locations should this artwork go in, where it should sit, and related to the participants, the portrait that were made, how those related to place. Noni's was placed at Leimert Park, but at that time, Leimert Park was chained shut. It had been fenced in the entire pandemic. And to me, that was, kind of outrageous. It was a public park that no one had access to. And so what was really important was how important that park became And so the portrait that Noni chose to do was of a woman who really did a lot of community celebrations within Leimert Park. And when we decided that that Noni's piece should be anchored to that fence, we weren't sure that the city would allow us to put it there. And there was quite a back and forth about whether it would be allowed. What was remarkable is that when it got installed at the park, what happened is they had to unchain it in order for the work crew to install it. And that unchaining of the entry gate, a gate that had not been opened for almost 3-4 years, opened up to the neighborhood, and the neighborhood was astonished that it would be open, and there was Noni's artwork on the side of that fence. It was, to me, as if she had opened up the park. And a park is one of the greatest healing spaces that you can have, and particularly in Leimert Park, particularly during the pandemic, and particularly within that Black community. And so it was so special that her piece be at that entrance. And in her work itself, could you take it back? If you look, you can see that what she painted was the Leimert Park fountain in her painting. And the People Street Adinkra symbols that are on the walkway, or were. They are no longer there, but they were there at that time. And I was struck too by just the color and vibrancy. She used all of her signature Noni elements to bring into this much smaller footprint. And it was something that she discussed with me. She said, you know, this is so much smaller, and I'm working with all of these other artists. I'm not sure what to do, because she was so used to the scale of the mural. But she did say to me the sample was a painting, and she did it on canvas. And she felt really intrigued by that process of bringing it down much smaller. And so when we put it up there, it had such a powerful, overarching celebration. What happened too was that the opening of the park coincided with Juneteenth. And the Juneteenth celebration on top of that was just explosive. The community came out, they really welcomed these pieces, and there was a piece of artwork both on the entry point from People Street as well as the opposite side entry. And in total, there were 8 panels done. There were also a variety of the total of 8 artists. And there was a poet, S. Pearl Sharp, a photographer, Helene Ovalby, and what no one quite expected was how they all came together. Even as the lead artist, I could not have told you what the end result would look like, nor how the community would respond, especially in the midst of the pandemic. But it was tremendous, and people were really ready to share their story, to convey things that most people would find private, like the fact of how do you address the kind of mental processes we had to go through for all of us, for really the world in the midst of a pandemic. And so for people to share those stories and those stories get translated into art was incredibly powerful. And Noni was such an important component of that. And afterwards, you can go to, when it was, oh, yes, that one. This was an example of how one artist's act has then a ripple effect on the community. And Noni's piece, because she had always brought in the kind of spiritual side into her art, this was completely spontaneous. During the Juneteenth festival, it opened and she came over and did this incredible honor and libation around Noni's piece. And to me, it was so fitting that I photographed her doing that. And it's the kind of response people bring when they confront and encounter Noni's work. And so here it is again at Leimert Park, and Marie is there in front of her piece, and you can really see the joy she had at seeing her portrait and knowing that Noni had collaborated in the crafting of this image, the colors that are so evocative in Noni's work. And along with Leimert Park, the other locations that Noni's work showed up in was at the California African American Museum. They had been open to having them along the fence line of Figueroa, all 8. It was the only site that included all 8 panels, and Noni's was one of them. And here we are too, Noni being in front of her piece. And I just felt that, you know, having them in these 2 locations was really important. The context of her work being within the community, but also in a place of a museum that reflects the community. And so to me, along that fence line activated both areas. It activated the park to be reopened. It activated the museum to see artists and artwork from places that they don't always look for. And so Noni too is really eager to see and to be a part of other artists' collaboration and arts community. And she was equally as intrigued to see what the other artists had done, both the emerging young artists to the other artists who were more peers. And she would capture that. I did not know about Noni's photography and her use to look through the lens and see certain things. And so to me, her being captured photographing other art was just really important to see. Next one. Afterwards, and she had said to me after that project that one of the things she really felt, it gave her an opportunity to look at this different scale of her work. And that what she would like to do is explore that more. And we had a couple of conversations after that because she applied to get the Blue Roof residency, and she called me up to, one day letting me know she got it and that she was still selecting which studio would work best for her. But she said to me, as another artist, she said, "So, when are you going to apply?" And I did apply, and I came in right after Noni. And it's important that, artists in working together also tend to share in terms of ideas and needs. And so when she had her residency, the one thing she was not able to do is have an in-person opening. However, what we were all doing at the time was learning how to be remote in the still tail end of the pandemic. And so her opening was on Zoom. And I had never seen Noni so in her element. And maybe it was sometimes in a way helpful to do it on Zoom, because sometimes when you're in the midst of a crowd, it's a little bit more intimidating. But she just showed the work and went into her element, and I believe it was almost an hour and a half of just Noni sharing Noni. And that was beautiful. It was beautiful for me to see as a fellow artist and friend. And I told her that afterwards. I couldn't figure out how to tell her that in the Zoom for technical reasons, but I did afterwards. And then she invited me and my housemates, Rob McMillan and B. Jones, to come to the residency, come see the work in person, that she could do a small crowd. And the very last day of her work being up and her residency, we went. And the only thing I said to her is, if we come, we all have to mask. And it's interesting, the double meaning on that, because one of the pieces is she has her ancestral mask, and then she too is wearing a protective mask. She again was in her element, and she was so pleased to have us come and visit her during that moment of all of that artwork. And she shared each one, she told us about each painting and what it meant for her. When we left there, the feeling I had was that it was a full circle moment. I had seen her work early and as it evolved, and then to see the work she had done in her residency, where she could focus on not just even Noni, but her inner Noni. And I felt it was full circle. What I did not, of course, realize is, that would be the last time I saw Noni. And so after Noni made her transition, I was checking on the work still, because these works were all supposed to be temporary. And what is amazing is the piece at Leimert Park is still there. All these years later, it's still there. And I came across this statement on the sidewalk right at the entrance to the park. And I just felt it struck me as a saying, not only by the community for the park, it could be referring to the park, it could be referring to the artwork, and it could be referring to Noni. All of those things together just made such a bold, open, loving statement. And so I took a photo of it to remind me of that moment. So there you have it. We had made a set of cards for the Re-Rise project, and hers was one of the more favorite cards in the pack. But she was so honored to be a part of that program. I was honored to work with her, and together we felt that, again, LA Commons and the whole community had been, in such great support for another artist program in a very difficult time. Thank you.
So thank you to these three presenters, putting Noni's work in the context of this extraordinary exhibition at the Huntington. I think there are more than a dozen projects that Noni was commissioned to do at LA Commons. And then this beautiful final chapter at Leimert Park. So many new perspectives on Noni's work in addition to the murals that we talked about. Are there any questions from the wonderful audience or comments about the puppet show?
Can I just say, I want to just add to what Dominique said about her last exhibition, because I got to go see it. It was so powerful. And when you say full circle, it just, I talk about her being on a spiritual journey. I think she had reached this very evolved state, given what the work was representing. And so, it was very shocking that she passed away, but looking at the work, the connection with her and this spiritual world was just so deep. So anyway, a very incredible human, I think, in that regard, just really diving into this journey that we have the opportunity to be on, and to have this body of work that really documents, that journey. So.
But I do think activism can be a personal one too, is we have to activate ourselves as much as we do the activation of others. And to do both is showing yourself to be very vulnerable, because sometimes in that a larger social public space, you have to kind of step back. But then in your personal space, then you're exposing it, you're activating that and exposing it to the public. As someone who I do social practice, I definitely saw that in Noni, and sometimes she voiced that there was a bit of a struggle of, trying to allow that more vulnerable side to show, the one that is personal to her. But that final residency, which she felt so honored by, and she told me that she had never had an opportunity like that. And that was, I was surprised, because I saw her, art and value as an artist to be, enormous, that it surprised me that she had not been offered that kind of opportunity prior. But sometimes timing, we don't necessarily always control that. But that residency at Blue Roof actually ended up being the perfect moment for her. it was also the perfect place. And the one thing I will say about having been an artist in residency there as well, Blue Roof used to have been a house of worship and for several different churches. And the irony that she would do her first residency in a space that had been a church, I thought was incredibly synchronistic. And it was very powerful. So that residency needed to be air for her and her for that moment.
Well, and I would say that that is such a unique residency in general because it's in the middle of South LA. So it's really kind of like, it feels like it's kind of up to people in a way, you know? I mean, I you know, as I said earlier, I can relate to Noni as an activist. You know, she's a truth teller. Truth tellers don't always get invited. That's why it's like she's in the Huntington, baby. But, you know, the truth tellers don't always get invited to, you know, the mainstream spaces. So, you know, that was the perfect, I think, place for her to finally get that experience and, you know, sort of following on, having her have the opportunity to be here, you know. That often happens with people who are, you know, so their voice is so powerful, but people, you know, it's so powerful that people, but, you know, it's a little, I remember that time in, what was the Spike Lee movie they were like, this is Chingla, you know, you know, but, you know, like, you know, finally people are ready for Noni, which is awesome.
Hi, my name is Jamie Kim, and I've been a long-term resident of Los Angeles for many, many decades, years. And I've been back to Korea the last few years to take care of my mom. And so, you know, being away from Los Angeles, the States, it gave me you know, fresh lens to look at what Los Angeles is, because a lot of neighbors have been asking about it. So I was just thinking, you know, people from the outside, how they understand the United States, the Los Angeles is, you know, very removed. And I thought it would be a great way to introduce such artists as Louis, you know, to people outside of LA. And I was thinking, oh, Korean community as well, because a lot of people, because without the language accessibility, they would never, they wouldn't come to an event like this, because a lot of the first generation Korean Americans don't speak a language. So I thought, oh, okay, this would be a great opportunity to share. So that's one thing. And the second thing was, oh, well, in LAUSC and all the schools, I woke up wondering if there's like a teaching curriculum that got developed to share with the students, or is in the works, or, you know, just big question that keeps going on.
Are you asking about curriculum from the exhibition specifically, or about murals?
I guess sure go to LAUSC and, you know, the younger grade level students.
What I'm hearing is like just the opportunity to, have this work seen by different audiences, and like what the possibilities are there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I got to see the show very quickly, and it's just so needy. I think I seen her work here and there in messages, but to see the exhibit, it's just really just
Stunning. Inspiring.
Thank you.
It's like the budgets.
Hi, my name is Isabel Rojas-Williams, and I just want to extend my gratitude to Karen Rapp for this amazing tribute to Noni Olabisi. We had tried, after she passed, to put something together, Karen and many other people in the community, but you made it possible in such an incredible way that I just wanted to say thank you. Including the mural tours that you organized and this incredible talk. I also want to extend my gratitude to the Huntington, a place where we walk almost every day, forever, since the 70s, and super grateful to see Noni's artwork, including at the Huntington. It took a long time for the Huntington to do what it's doing today. I see more of our people, more of our minorities included, because we do that. We do cross lines back and forth forever. We work together, every person that you see here, somehow we have worked together. So I just want to say thank you for that, for this important inclusion of one of our best icons, Noni Olabisi. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate the thanks from you, and really this project is so much just supported, and I feel like I am the beneficiary of the love that all of you have for Noni, including Barande, and it's been a true privilege to be able to bring it to fruition, and knowing that we are all going to be at Huntington this summer admiring what I'm sure will be a gorgeous installation with Noni's beautiful, epic painting as the centerpiece. That gives me a lot of, personal just satisfaction. I can't wait to have my picture taken with you, Arande, next to the painting. I'm thrilled to be able to have this opportunity to show the work at LMU. I wish I did have a mechanism to bring students from many parts of the school district, LAUSD. I'm not sure that I can make that happen, but I know that our college audience has really responded to Noni's work, and we have had students as young as 5 come in and be mesmerized. And you know that you cannot, a child does not fake their interest in anything, and so to see how little children are drawn to Noni's work, and it's been extremely gratifying. Thank you all for coming to this wonderful tribute to Noni, and thank you to the speakers today.